Welcome back. So as Donald Trump prepares to take up residence in the White House yet again, we take a look at the implications of this for South Africa and for the continent, as we've been reporting today. Trump has won 276 electoral college votes. That's compared to 223 for U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris. My colleague Xoli Mngambi is in Washington, D.C. For us. And Jody Jacobs is, of course, also joining us from New York City. But Xoli, I know that it's been quite the day as last night at around 8 o'clock in the U.S., at that time where you are voting, closing, those numbers coming in. And I can just imagine the atmosphere at Howard University, where Kamala Harris was, to watch as those numbers were streaming in.
Okay, perfect. Well, Naledi, you mentioned Howard University, and that's the venue where Kamala Harris is understood to would have made her victory speech had she won this election. We're learning a bit more information in the last few minutes or so that at any time during the day, she is going to make the call to President-elect Donald Trump, congratulating him, and this is understood to be part of the process. And then later on in the evening, Kamala Harris will make an official speech, and that is when we understand she will be conceding defeat. Talking about Donald Trump, I want to take you now to New York, and that's where Jody Jacobs is stationed. New York, also a place that is somewhat close to President Donald Trump, or President-elect Donald Trump, and that's because he also does live there sometimes. That's why there is the Trump Tower, that is his private residence in New York. Jody Jacobs, good afternoon to you. Any activity outside Trump Tower? What's the mood like in New York?
Yeah, Xoli, a bit of mixed bag in terms of what people are feeling here in New York City, but I can tell you that down at Trump Towers, which is not too far from where I am at the moment, a lot of people coming, a lot of people celebrating outside. We saw celebrations there last night already when the announcement was made that Donald Trump had won the election. So people were already out there. People are still out there. I took a walk past there a few minutes ago. People are out with signs. They are celebrating this victory. But then there's also the curious onlookers who are also coming to Trump Towers. It is in Fifth Avenue. So people are also walking about. A lot of tourists there as well. Everybody now just trying to take pictures once again at Trump Towers, not only because of the beauty of the building, but of course to now celebrate the victory of the President-elect of the United States. But it's somewhat deja vu here in New York City, especially this morning when I came into the office. The United States, of course, waking up to that Donald Trump victory. It's decisive, it's resounding, and it's historic. That's what some of the newspapers are saying here in New York. The former president became the first one in 120 years to win back the White House, having lost it the last time around. Now, some may say that this was somewhat of a stunning political comeback. Donald Trump, twice impeached, a convicted felon who is now readying himself for another term in that Oval Office. New York, of course, remaining a blue state, Xoli, and that was to be expected. But I can say that, like I've said before, New York is not America, and the Americans have now spoken. The American people have spoken, and Donald Trump will now be handed the keys to that Oval Office. Now, interesting enough, though, on my cab ride into work this morning, I asked my cab driver, who was an Arab American, who he had voted for. And Xoli, he said to me that he had voted for Donald Trump. He says that he doesn't necessarily like Trump, but that the Democrats had made things cost a lot more, speaking to the issue of the economy, and that he was afraid of all the illegal immigrants, especially in New York City, coming into the U.S. He's telling me that he had to fight to get into this country legally, and so he doesn't want to see illegal immigrants within New York City. That right there speaks to the America that many people around the world seem shocked by, who have now voted in Donald Trump. Donald Trump, the 47th president-elect of the United States, he is also still awaiting sentencing here for his hush money case here in New York City, together with a raft of other state and federal pending cases. We know from reports that Donald Trump is scheduled to appear in a New York courtroom later on in November to receive a sentence for his conviction earlier this year for that 34 counts of falsifying his business records and covering up the hush money payments. So we're going to have to see what is going to happen next now that he is in the office presidential office, whether or not he in fact will be sentenced, or whether he's going to take advantage of a Supreme Court's decision earlier granting the president some sort of presidential immunity. Another interesting report, Xoli, as I throw back to you, is that a lot of reports this morning as well here in New York that Donald Trump's return to the White House might also prove to be a win for one of his most visible supporters, and that visible supporter is Elon Musk. Of Elon Musk, of course. And so many are waiting to see what is going to happen with Elon Musk. Many reports this morning saying that he might be in Donald Trump's cabinet. So that's also a wait-and-see game for January, when Donald Trump, in fact, takes office as the next president of the United States. Xoli.
Yeah, Jody Jacobs, that's going to be one to watch. The composition of the Donald Trump cabinet. Who will make it to his cabinet? That's going to be very interesting to watch. And of course, as you mentioned, Jody Jacobs, lots of history being made here. Donald Trump, as I was reading through some material, he has made history as well, in that he becomes the second president in the history of America to go back into the presidency in a non-consecutive term. I hope that makes sense. In other words, he became president, got off, and he got back again. And so non-consecutive terms. The only other president who's done that in the history of America is someone, Grover Cleveland, and that was back in the 1800s. And so this is only happening for the second time in the history of this country. Let's throw it back to you, Naledi Moleo.
Well, one thing we can all agree on is that it certainly is fascinating to watch the news coming out of the U.S. and watch the political landscape in the U.S. Play out. Xoli Mngambi, of course, keeping us updated as more of those reactions do come, not just from the U.S., but also from across the globe. Stay with us on channel 405 for that. We take a short break. When we come back, we take you live back to Cape Town, where this year's Earthshot Prize Awards are being held. Stay with us.